According to the writer Mary Karr, memoir lives and dies 100% on voice, which can be kind of intimidating if you're not sure about your voice, if you're not certain that you have a really strong written voice. And while I agree with the sentiment of that quote, I don't agree entirely with the percentage, but it's true that it doesn't matter how great the story is. If the narrative voice can't carry it, it's not going to be delivered. Or by contrast, it doesn't matter if the writer has a very quiet story. If the voice is strong and it's structured well and all kinds of other things, it can be as powerful as, one of these crazy childhood stories that goes to 1,000 places and is full of adventure and so on. So how do you find that voice? The thing about memoir writing, the voice in memoir, is that it needs to be your authentic voice, which might sound obvious, but you'd be surprised how many people come to the table to write their memoir, and then certain influences, it can be a career in academic writing, a career in report writing, a career in business writing, it can be the voice of a teacher who never appreciated your voice, for example, but certain things can force us into a voice that isn't actually our own. It is not our storytelling voice. It's a more formal version of us. It's a voice that needs to sound authoritative, that needs to sound educated, whatever it might be. That might work in other realms. It doesn't work in memoir. In fact, it alienates the reader from the writer. We don't trust a person who sounds like an authority, who sounds very formal, who sounds overly schooled. We don't want someone we as readers, we can't cozy up to someone who's being pretentious. That might work in other circles, but it doesn't work in memoir. And so we need the real you. And the real you is going to be imperfect. I tell people, reach for imperfection when you're looking for your voice. And it's not just, what I don't mean is grammatically incorrect and just sentences that are thrown together. That's not what I mean at all. What I mean is, it is a humble voice. It's the voice of your inner self, the voice you use to talk to yourself. Because that is really ultimately who's telling the story. And the more intimate we as a reader can be with you as the writer, the more likely we are to follow you through every step of your story and to trust you. And we are inherently distrustful of people who are yet talking to us from a distance, particularly when they're trying to tell us a personal story. It's sort of like having a relationship with someone who's not being transparent, who's pretending to be something, or who's keeping something from us, or who's trying to be perfect. That in a relationship doesn't work, and the reader-writer relationship is similar. We need a narrator we can trust. And so what I can spot a voice, most of us can spot a voice that rings true, that feels authentic within the first few pages. I'm willing to follow someone if they can sort of convince me in the first few pages that they're being authentic with me. They are being real. This is who they are, warts and all. And it doesn't mean, that we have to sort of, it's not about hanging out dirty laundry in the first few paragraphs. No, it's not that. It's that this person isn't trying to pretend to be anything more than who they are. They're not putting on airs. They're not speaking in ways they don't actually speak day to day. Your voice needs to be your voice. And one way of finding that, if you have trouble finding it, if you have had a career in other kinds of writing and finding your memoir voice, your authentic voice is difficult for you, one thing that can be helpful is invite a friend over, put your phone down, press play, record yourself telling your friend a story, and listen to how you speak. And you can even go so far as to transcribe that voice onto the page so you can see what your voice looks like on the page. But more than anything, be true. Just be real and be imperfect. that free writing voice that you write, that you use when you write in your journals, if you were to write a letter to a dear friend, that's your voice. That's where to look for it. And often we can find it when we don't over edit, when we just do what's called free writing, which is just writing without going back, without correcting. This is just a first draft. No one else is going to read it but you. It's just getting the idea down. It's just experimenting. And from there we can begin to see and be reminded of how we sound, how we really sound when we're just being ourselves. So I hope that helps.